morning. Uh-oh. Got a little high? There we are.
Just a little. Only for you. Dave, don't forget the internet.
Hello, Internet. Hello, room. Hello, Internet. Hello, room. How did you... It's just going to be that moment when you walk on stage, we'll all just shout that. One up front, one back, four aft, whatever, you know.
Yeah.
There we are.
Yeah, that right there.
You know, defining what fore and aft are, yeah, you know. Anyway, thank you all for hanging out. Thank you all for not deciding to bail on us the second that we let you all out the door again. I would like to point out that there is cake in the back. The white cake, for those of you out there who have allergy issues, does actually have some nut extract in it. I am not just talking about... Bye, James. It's been nice knowing you. My kingdom for an EpiPen. Typical day. But the marble chocolate one does not. So with that in mind, in case there should be an issue. Although I'm not seeing anybody falling over dead yet, so that's probably good. Bernie, you can tell me you didn't do that on purpose, but I'm telling you right now, no one will buy it. Stephen, are you all right?
He's a man of timing, much remember.
Yeah, he does comic timing very, very well. Stephen Shrust, ladies and gentlemen, second show completely different than the first. Thank you very much and enjoy the kosher veal. Look, with that whole thing, I just can't resist throwing that one in. So, let me see, where were we? Oh yes, that's right, we have other performers because I'm not doing this shit again. So, over here, in the hidden corner by the computer, where she's currently breaking off some kind of intense internet chat conversation.
$2.99 a minute. I can't.
Yeah, I know, that's work. I mean, it's a paying gig, I know. Ladies and gentlemen, we call her Jessica Sophia, which is kind of like knowing the Lone Ranger's name. Instead, we prefer to think of her as a family.
All right, you guys, I'm an absolute glutton for this apparently, because I think, 6 o'clock I send you this text message going, can I beg off for tonight because I'm just beat. I've been up since 7 o'clock in the morning buying produce and cars and wine, and it's been a very busy day. And I do hate pants, actually. So pants are just a total bummer in my world. So mostly because I love cake and I love cheese, so pants can suck it. So, several things this evening. First of all, I want to say happy birthday to all of the virgins in the room. I seem to collect them. That was kind of my Pokemon of my teens and 20s. I had this thing where it was Catholics, virgins, and J names, and I had the trifecta at least once. So, he was a Jew, but that would totally go on my headboard right there. So, yeah. I don't know how that pillow talk would go, or that mid-sex orgasm noise would be, oh me! So, that really conjures interesting images of Jesus masturbation with the holes in his hands, but he can totally double team himself. That's awesome. So, what? Better than when you're drinking, because that ends up going and then we just get facials involved, and then the evening devolves. Yeah, exactly. So, it was the water sponge. I like it. And then the wine stayed out too long and it got to be vinegar and yeah, anyway. So our day has been kind of busy. I am not much for adorable, but apparently today I couldn't help it because Adrian, who happens to be sitting back there, decided that he liked my little Mini Cooper so much that he had to put a ring on his own. So those of you who have been stalking my Facebook feed have seen that he has managed to get himself a little 2008 Mini Cooper, which is the same make and model of mine, because I told him he cannot have a turbo because I will steal it, and then proceed to pay for it in speeding tickets. So, but yes, congratulations on being adorable with me. So, I have been up since 7 o'clock in the morning, and it started off with buying produce, and it turned out we ended up buying a car, so at least I get my bird dog, right? So, but it's been an interesting week. I know the last time I was up here, I was talking about how I had started a new job, and I had my boss say something. Apparently, she has thoroughly stalked me online because she reminded me that Talk Like a Pirate Day was coming up. Yeah, right. Well, last year, I decided it was not only Talk Like a Pirate Day, but it was Dress Like a Pirate Day at work. And in my previous life, as a professional masochist, and by that I mean I worked a government help desk, if they were going to shove us in the basement, the dungeon, I was going to equip it as such. So hanging in my cubicle, I had a Mardi Gras feathered mask, I had a foam mace, and a foam scimitar. So we were equipped should really pussy zombies decide to attack. But are you self-identifying as a pussy zombie? All right. Good to know. So yeah, I had my foam scimitar hanging at my desk before we moved downstairs, and I decided to wear my striped socks, gaucho pants, my scarf around my middle, and talk like a pirate all day, which is interesting when you work a help desk. Yar! So I have these pictures online, and apparently my current boss has her spies everywhere and still hired me, and has gone so far as to call me Mini Her, which is kind of frightening and kind of flattering, and I really don't know what to do with that. But I was telling her about this photo. I said, oh yeah, I've got this photo from Talk Like a Pirate Day last year, where I've got the pants and the socks, and she stops me mid-story going, yeah, I know, I've seen it. Oh shit, you weren't kidding when you said you Googled me. First day on the job, she says to me, I Googled you, and I'm going, okay, well, did you Google me, or was it my alternative personality? Both. Because I try and keep them separate for plausible deniability. Apparently it doesn't work too well. So, but anyway, she made this passing comment. We've got a gentleman who works in IT on another floor who apparently likes to assign names to everybody that is not their own. And I think I started off as Anastasia, which I says, well, that's very royal. And then he changed his mind and said, I'm going to call her Molly, to which my new boss says something like, yeah, how very unsinkable. And I says, yeah, I can live with that. But in this conversation, she says to me, yeah, I saw that photo of you with the scimitar, and I forwarded it on to this guy who has since named me Molly. So apparently I already have a reputation, having only worked 6 days at this particular location. And she says, talk about fearless. And, and that set off that one ear. You know, how when you've got an animal that hears something off in the distance, and that one ear just hones in on it. And it doesn't necessarily change the course of that activity, but it was one of those where I filed it away for later, and I'm chewing on it, and I'm thinking, that's a really new word for me, fearless. Because my opinion has been, you know, there's shit that needs to get done. Nobody else is going to do it, or they're not going to do it in a way that's going to keep me happy, so God damn it, give it here. And looking back, you know, I don't say this to toot my own horn, I just say this as a checklist. You know, I went through the checking on bankruptcy and checking on what it would cost for divorce and what's going to be the most efficient, most cost-effective way of getting this done. What's going to be the best way to sell the house? What's going to be the best way to get moved? What's going to be the best way to get this? Give it here, I'll get it done. And that's kind of been the last several years of my life, was I've got this heavy lifting to be done, so let's stop fucking around, let's get to it. And it really caught me off guard, this use of the word fearless. I didn't see it. Now, have you ever known, like, the hot girl who didn't know she was hot? Or, so that pussy thing. But you totally did. You did. We're talking about James's pussy, so. But have you ever known someone who is just totally unaware of who they are? And it's not in a bad way. It's they're not aware of exactly what they have going for them. Usually I have found that it's somebody who has this strange sense of self-importance. It's the Dunning-Kruger effect. I'm looking at this table because this is where the brains are kept. So, yeah. Yes. So it's the, I want to say Dunning-Kruger, but I'm probably mispronouncing it. Because it's very much like my spelling, because I have a $5 vocabulary and a 25-cent spelling budget. My pronunciation is probably off on that, but in a way, it was a bit of a reverse. It took me by surprise, and it made my ear just say, "What is this fearless you speak of? I just had shit that needed to get done." And it kind of hit me to think that this was true, because I've never felt that it was that heavy. It was just something that needed, one pant leg at a time, so to speak. And so I brought this up, and I made this post saying, this is new to me. And the fantastic part about this very long conversation was that I wasn't looking necessarily for pats on the back. I wasn't looking for the recognition. I was pretty much saying, this happened, and it surprises me, and it's interesting, and it's amazing what you can learn when you put your ear to the ground and you listen to what other people have to say. And through the course of the conversation, words were used that were very flattering, that included things such as strong or vocal or any number of other very nice terms that I felt were, hey, you're pretty amazing. And it occurred to me later that not one of them had a damn thing to do with looks. And you know what? That feels really fucking good. Because you know what? This fades. And this can be, what, huh? Oh, stop. I would much rather have something up here and something up here than any of this. And I have some very dear friends who have been struggling with body image. And one of whom I have heard through the grapevine has said something along the lines of, I don't know where the confidence is that I was supposed to get by dropping all this weight. And I love this woman, but I just want to hug her and say that's not where it comes from. I want to say you will not find that in your waistband. You will find that in who you are, because nobody is going to say on your tombstone, God damn, she was skinny. So this whole conversation about fearless or not, and the words that were used with regards to me were, if you paid attention to what was said, were beautiful. And perhaps some of the better compliments that I have ever gotten, not that I was looking for them, but it really did occur to me that nothing that was said had a damn thing to do with the package or the wrapping. It was about what I stood for and what I say and the power that I have behind what I do and what I write and I say, and that I take for total granted. And I really hoped that this friend of mine who's been struggling with trying to find her confidence and her self-worth listened. And it is not my place to say, oh, sweetie, no, that single-digit dress size is not where it comes from. It comes from your being, yourself. I really hope that that's something that everybody in this room can take away from this. It does not matter if you have a fupa, which I sport when my pants are too tight. It does not come from whether or not these particular pants hide the fact that you may or may not have a camel toe, which I have. I have a goddamn herd. Let's be real. I am Crazy Ahmad's dealer. So, but we have one hump and we have two hump. Depends on how much water they're holding. Aren't you glad you just got that cake? No, you'd have to be hungry. Let me tell you how that works. That's called buttercream frosting, 2 servings. But my point is that looks, while they're fantastic, they fade or they can be purchased. And there's so much more to a human being that I really wish more people would understand, because, yeah, you can make eye contact with somebody from across the room and say, God, they're hot, I'd totally like to throw it in them. But what's going to make you want to stick around with that person? You know, when gravity starts to take effect, or when you realize they really do have that gap through the front of their teeth and they start whistling, are you going to want to keep them around? It's really a matter of, you know, what you are beyond the wrapping paper. Because while that wrapping paper looks fantastic on the floor immediately following Christmas, it's what in it. It's what's in the package, in the box, so to speak. It's what's under that wrapping paper that's really important. And I really hope that my inspiration in this regard is something that other people can kind of have that aha moment and realize, you know what? I can be ugly and still be beautiful. And that's on the inside and the outside. They don't have to match. So, anyway, that's what I got for you tonight. Thank you.
So I had this weird moment when organizing everything, because I showed up a little bit later than I usually do to set up this event. And so I had a piece of material ready to go on the thought that there was going to be somebody here, but she had to bail on us at the last second. I don't know if any of you know a woman by the name of Ferial Pearson by name. If not, this is somebody that you should just get to know or recognize or whatever, because she's awesome. Ferial Pearson teaches both at OPS, and she also teaches, I believe, at UNO. She teaches at the high school level as well. And she's an amazing person. She's originally from Kenya, and she married an American gentleman, and they have these amazing kids. And but the thing that was really interesting is that one of the things she's kind of taken on for herself, excuse me, is LGBTQ issues. I can't remember the entire whole long list. It's a long, that acronym, whatever it might be. And
LGBTQ, thank you.
thank you.
Yeah.
Feel free to correct. I freely admit I'll bollocks it up here on more than a few occasions. She actually got an award for being like the National LGBTQ Teacher of the Year 2 years ago. And she's just like amazing. She leads anti-bullying campaigns and such, and really like busts her ass on a regular basis, so much so that she couldn't make tonight's show because she was out working with some of her students. And there was a bit that I put together, and you were kind enough to remind me of this. I blanked on it when I walked on stage earlier today. A little buzzed. And I have this alternate personality as well. You have a family, and you have teamed up with my inner supervillain, Dr. Zodiac. And for those of you who are not familiar with Dr. Zodiac, he began as an idea in my brain when I was living in Columbus, Nebraska, because that place is boring as fuck. My former roommates are there. They are two of the most awesome people I know, Andrew and Patrick. And we were kind of like a small enclave of weirdness in a town of 30,000 really normal fucking people. And after 9 years, I'd had about enough of this shit. If I had not moved to Omaha, there probably would have been a gunshot involved. I tried being normal, it just didn't work out for me, and the more that I tried to be normal, the more this character, Dr. Zodiac, started appearing in my head. And Dr. Zodiac is my inner supervillain. He is power mad and greedy and sex crazed and still has better morals and ethics than the people that are running the show now. And when I'm particularly pissed off about something, Dr. Zodiac comes out. And Ferial had reminded me of something. There was an article in Rolling Stone in February or January, I can't remember which. If you're in the mood to be so angry that you want to take a chair and throw it through a window, read this article. I was like sitting at work lividly angry, grateful that there was nobody else around at that point in time, because I was like sitting there reading this article getting madder by the second. And it's about a town in Minnesota where they had a set of cluster suicides going on amongst LGBTQ youth. Because the schools there could not even use the term gay, they couldn't use the term trans or queer or anything. They could only speak about sexuality from a heterosexual perspective, and teachers were literally blocked from referencing anything else. And so literally to the point where students are being bullied, and they can't even recognize the fact that these students are being bullied because of their sexual identity. And so it kept going on, and these students, it reached the point where, like, I think they said it was like 5, maybe 9, I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head, committed suicide, and another 30 attempted. And one of the things that blew my mind is that there was a minister in there who basically made some comment to the effect of, well, you see, basically blaming the victim, saying if these kids could at least attempt to try to be normal or to fit in on some level, they wouldn't be hassled in this way. And suddenly Dr. Zodiac raised his head and said, you see, because here's how it works in my brain, and here's where Dr. Zodiac comes from. On one side, there is this little Irish imp in my head. And that little Irish imp comes from the part of me that is both Catholic and Protestant Irish simultaneously, which means that I was born angry and a little hyperactive. And when I get mad, I don't bother going halfway. I go straight from, I'm sitting here, to wrapping a chair around your head. I had to kind of rein that temper in as a kid. And that little Irish imp will see something like that, and he'll jump up and down and go, oh, no, you can't let him get away with that. No, you gotta go fuck with him. And then there's the rational part of my brain that says, okay, look, we have not paid the legal bills from the last time you did that shit, so just settle down and be cool. What happens in the way that Dr. Zodiac appears is when the rational part of my brain looks at the little Irish imp and says, well, what do you know? The little fucker's got a point. Go get him. And so that's when the most vicious, mean, sarcastic part of me comes out, and then it's time, and then that shit is on. And so I had fun writing up a reply to this particular minister. I actually had it written out at one point in time. I, of course, don't have it with me, so bear with me. This may work, it may not. The heading on this starts from the office of Dr. Zodiac, number 23, underneath the hollowed out volcano. Dear Minister, I saw your comments in regards to the cluster suicides going on in Minnesota, and I have to admit, you have a valid point. How dare those children be outside of the social norm? Help to bring these kids back into normalcy. The problem is this. You have attracted the attention of very, very dangerous people. The great liberal gay conspiracy has its eyes on you, and they will get you. I have heard from other ministers in the past. Some of them have left their homes, come back and found the entire place completely redecorated when they arrived. Another one was found crushed underneath a deadfall of gay porn magazines, poncho, inches, and uncut. How can you imagine going to your Savior knowing that you died in this particular manner? We would like to help you. We know a number of places where you can hide to stay away from these sorts of people. Norman, Oklahoma is actually very pleasant this time of year. So, minister, please, leave town. Find a place where no one will find you. And most of all, please be quiet. We'll let you know when it's safe to come out. Ladies and gentlemen, with that in mind, we now have, I had to throw that one out or else I was going to explode. We now have Alan Wiggs. Where are you at? Alan, tell me you're here.
What?
You're next, mate.
Oh, okay.
So wrapped up in this.
Hey! You had that sitting in front of you, wouldn't you be confused? Good point.
Howdy. So, is this tall enough? So I was gonna work up to this, but no one can really accuse Veronica Smash of burying the lead, so, in large part, my next topic is about my penis. If you have a problem with that, you're about to learn something. So when you're a kid, your parents often will tell you, don't hold it if you have to go to the bathroom. If you hold it too long, something bad will happen to you. I was terrible at following directions. So when I was a kid, I was about 13, I started getting, I started bleeding from about one of the least comfortable places that you ever want to bleed. This wasn't life-threatening. It wasn't, it wasn't something that I felt like was going to be painful or hurt me. But
Did you get your period, Alan?
that was the thing. I was 13 years old. I was on the cusp of my burgeoning masculinity, and this starts happening. That South Park episode with the tampons hadn't even come out yet, so I had no idea what to do. In fact,
Did you have a happy period?
Nope. What was that, Procter & Gamble? How much C4 do we have, and what city is that based out of?
I will sponsor this.
So this wasn't even 5 days a month. This was something in an ever-increasing and ever more difficult to hide from my parents situation. I didn't do my own laundry at this point. It wasn't that long until I got found out. So, of course, my mother, being the good suburban wife that she is, decided to freak out the entire family and immediately run me to the doctor. I love her, and she does everything that she needs to keep our family on an even keel. But in this case, they literally had nothing to say. They had no idea what was happening. Now, there's plenty of situations in which, if I go a little clinical now, you can get blood in the urine. This is usually because of a kidney function problem or something else. What I had was not that. What I had was a flow of blood. A flow of blood that... Yes. And not from somewhere that you discuss much in the Bible. So I got to go through all kinds of interesting procedures while they were trying to figure out what this was, including I was one of the very few young pubescent boys to get an ultrasound, which, really didn't help me with my gender issues at this point. It's interesting, and I found out that exactly what the inside of my bladder looked like, which, you don't think about too much. But eventually, they just kind of threw up their hands. And this was one of my earliest examples of the medical profession, not exactly being what I thought it was, in that sometimes they simply don't find an answer and the problem goes away. Except sometimes problems that go away actually come back about 10 years later. So cue my mid-20s, again in something of a transitional period in my life, getting out of college, working full-time, trying to be on my own and self-sufficient, and then my little problem shows up again. This time I don't have a mother to freak out and look at my laundry, but I decide to do the adult thing, go to the doctor, who barely remembered me because I don't tend to go to my regular checkups, and say, there might be records from my pediatrician, who's probably dead by this point, but what's going on? And they decided to take it a little bit more seriously this time, and I got to be the only person under 65 in the urologist's office. So this was an increasingly serious battery of tests I went through. I got to have my first CT scan, which what they don't tell you when you see all of these medical shows where they put you through the machine and you go and you sit very, very still while they're taking pictures of all of your insides, is that while they're doing that, they're pumping you full of like a contrast dye to map your insides, and that dye, for some reason, and they prepare you for this, but you never quite believe them, for some reason gives you the feeling that you want nothing more in the world than to take a pee while you are lying horizontal in front of a nice 40-something-year-old lady who's just being incredibly pleasant with you, and you don't want to ruin her day. And then it's okay, and then they give you a DVD with all of the pictures on it, and it's like, oh great, it's like when I went on a log flume. But that was okay, that was reasonable. I got to keep my clothes on. Then they were like, well, okay, we didn't really find much with that test, so we're going to have to give you a cystoscopy. And I don't know what that is. Most of you probably don't know what that is. Most of you probably know what a colonoscopy is. And some of you of a certain age may have even experienced a colonoscopy, but what a cystoscopy is, it's the same sort of thing. It's done with a considerably smaller camera, and how much smaller do you ask? Not enough smaller.
Alan, does this qualify you as a sounder?
I'm pretty sure I would have had to do it with an erection. So this was also when I got to learn all kinds of other technical terms like meatus. I won't tell you what that is if you don't know it, but suffice it to say that there is a name for every single tiny part of the body that you would not expect there to be a name of. But this is where they stuck the syringe that was full of anesthetic. And it's also where they put the clamps.
Some people pay good money.
I did. Believe me, I did. So after you know the anesthetic had taken effect, again not enough. They go ahead and they do the insertion procedure, and then there's a TV screen set up. So now I not only know what an ultrasound of my bladder looks like, I also know what the inside of my urethra looks like, which, you know, maybe yours is.
Alan, is the DVD for sale at the end of the show? I really should be.
I actually lost it. It's one of the great sadnesses of my life. But so, I'm sitting here, I'm watching closed-circuit TV of a part of myself that I had hoped never to think about, let alone see on screen, and they're like, okay, so we're going to just go ahead and keep on going until we can take a look at the inside of the bladder. I'm like, okay, that was not on the menu. But unfortunately, the train came up a little bit short of the station because what they found was that my youthful indiscretion as to my time frame for getting to the bathroom had caused a buildup of scar tissue. Essentially, there was this little donut sitting in the middle of the tube that was kind of checking everything as it was going past and not really allowing the proper flow. So they're like, okay, so what we're going to do is next time we're going to put you out, and then we're going to do this basically the same thing except there's a knife on the end. And I was like, go back. You're going to put me out. All right then. So the next time I actually don't have too much clear memory of that, thank God, except for the bit right before I went out when a nice 62-year-old nurse was swabbing down parts that I'm sorry, I'm just not into G-MILFs. But then I wake up and I was introduced to my new best friend for the next week, Mr. Catheter Bag. Now, by the next week, I mean, well, this last procedure, this occurred on Good Friday, which meant that the next... yeah. That third day happened to be my grandmother's 90th birthday. My grandmother, who, like most of my maternal side of the family, grew up on a farm a couple hours north of Omaha, which is where I got to drive with my road trip buddy, Mr. Catheter Bag, on Easter Sunday in order to hang out with about 80 of my closest friends and relatives, celebrating the rebirth of our Lord. So, after awkward family photo poses and a couple more days of the most painful erections ever experienced by man, I know, James, you're always trying to top me.
Does that make you a bottom?
I said trying, but I finally got to end that particular ordeal. And then I found out that the procedure only has a 10% chance of being permanent and had to do it all over again about 3 months later.
Oh, yeah!
So, the upshot of this whole thing was I can pee standing up again, but I also got a nice $1,200 or so bill in the mail, plus another $500 from my general practitioner. Now, no price is too great for my dick, believe me. I'm a regular, warm-blooded American male. But at the same time, I look through I look through all this. This is after insurance, the insurance that I pay through my employer, like most hard, honest working folk in America. And I'm looking through this, and I'm looking through my insurance bills, and this is the first time I really come to the realization that $1,200, most of it's going for that CT scan machine, that nice 62-year-old junk-grabbing nurse, the special machines that let people look at parts of their insides that previously man was not meant to know. But I know that part of it is also going to investors, stockholders, people that own stock in these companies and the insurers. And I'm not really super comfortable with somebody else making money off of my dick.
I do it all the time.
You said you weren't putting those on the internet.
I fooled you.
But, so this is something where I come from a rather conservative political background in my upbringing, and while my ideas and attitudes have changed going on, it's something that not until recently I started having a serious attitude about, where people are paying out the pee hole for their medical expenses in this country. We have a decently high standard of care, but not the highest, and we certainly have the highest costs of pretty much anywhere in the developed world. And where is that going? And all I can conclude is that somebody is making money off of this. And do you want, when you go in for a mammogram, for somebody to get a piece of that action? Do you want when when you have to take your kid to the emergency room with 102 temperature for somebody to be coming up behind and saying, "Hey, where's my cut?" I don't think that healthcare, I don't think that making medicines, that administering medicines, that healing the sick should be something that people do for personal gain. Now, if you're a doctor, you need to make a living. If you're a nurse, if you're a med tech, if you work in a hospital, like a couple of our friends here at the Samurai of Spoken Word, that's absolutely something for which you should get a living wage. And I'm not standing up here and saying that these people don't need to be paid more, but do you really think that this is something that should be traded on the stock market? There's a lot of opinions out there about how to control our healthcare costs, and a lot of the politics is running around talking about this, but all I know is that I'm not a huge fan of having anything stuck up my dick, but I'd really rather it not have a cash register on one end. You have a good night, folks.
Always! Always!
congratulations, Alan. That has to be the funniest dick torture story I have ever heard.
I think we need to
Although-
upgrade our setup to mic the audience.
Yeah.
That's gonna be like.
Yeah, we've got to have an ambient mic, especially if we're going to have crowds like this again. And we are not complaining. God, no, we're not complaining. Please feed us. We love that sort of thing. Although knowing Andy and Patrick, they'll probably sit around and try to top that story at some point in time. I would like to point out that in terms of medical expenses and such, and this is the one time I'll be serious like a fucking heart attack, the thing that really does help to keep your costs and medical expenses up is the fact that health insurance companies are exempt from antitrust legislation. Keep that in mind and remember that. Every time I say that, somebody says, no, they're not. No, look it up, trust me. And so, hi. You just look, it's the red and green thing.
Do I look like fucking Christmas?
Yeah, pretty much.
Do I look like Bad Christmas? Christmas!
Something like that. Oh. According to her, that would definitely not be nearly enough. So this is where we get into, we've already had the dick torture story. I've heard about what it is that she's contemplating talking about. Either one of them, we're entering into the realm of bodily function and something relatively intense. So, ladies and gentlemen, Veronica Smash.
People have been talking about so many things that are near and dear to my heart tonight. I'm wearing pants. How many of you have seen me in pants before? There's like 3 motherfucking people in here that have seen me in pants. But let me tell you, pants, not a bad thing.
Fuck pants!
Well, as I become more androgynous and gender neutral, I have been encouraged by many mustache-loving lesbians that I should wear some pants. So I'm doing it. I'm wearing pants. People talk about other things very near and dear to my heart. The LGBTQ, the I am more than a pretty face, the drugs and various things that come with them, and also the love. Fuck all that shit. I don't want to talk about that shit tonight. I have talked about that shit in the past. I am going to do an interactive samurai spoken word where I am going to let you decide what I talk about. One hand will signify I want you to talk about the porn in France in the 90s. The other hand will signify I want you to talk about your best vomit stories. Think about it. Think about it. Porn in France? Yes. Woo! The best vomit stories?
Vomit story!
Oh, nobody at the pizza shop wants to hear about my vomit stories. That's why I told them at the slowdown. You can Google that shit if you really want. You can Facebook me and I'll fucking tell you my best vomit stories. But apparently the vote is for the porn in France. I am older. I am much older than I look. I went to France in 1996 when I was 16. France was wonderful in 1996. France was wonderful to me. Among the many wonderful things in France, they are an entirely old culture. Us as Americans, Big T Dubs, you as Omahans, you might not know that there are other things outside of Omaha. I encourage you to be outside of Omaha for at least 4 weeks at a time and to experience a culture with better public education. Sorry. Thank you.
I went to private school.
Just saying, just saying. It's not a popular opinion, but I don't give a fuck. So in France, they are an incredibly old culture. One of the things that I was very surprised that they value was their public art. They're incredibly respectful of the things that have come before them and of the things that have made them who they are. So museums, you know, wonderful, valued by society. Cathedrals, absolutely amazing. It took generations to fucking build cathedrals in Paris. Yes, we have St. Cecilia's. I lived in a house designed by Thomas Kimball, who also designed St. Cecilia. Not really the same fucking thing. Also, they value their culture, and as a mature culture, they're very comfortable with things like sexuality.
something we are not used to in this country. I stayed with a family in France. I was there for about 4 weeks when I was like 16. It was a school trip, yes, and it was a Catholic school trip even. But they let us stay with a family for a week. And one of the girls was 16 years old. The other girl was 18 years old. I did not get along with the girl who was 16 years old at all because she was like a fashionista and she was all like, I'm skinny and redheaded and you're like fat and 16, whatever. And the 18-year-old girl had a 26-year-old boyfriend that her parents let her regularly fucking vacation with on the Côte d'Azur. I don't know if you guys know, but the Côte d'Azur is where all the fucking nude beaches are in France. They're like letting their 17, 18-year-old daughter go to the Côte d'Azur with some guy who is 8 years older than her, and they don't fucking care because, guess what? Sex happens. Sex happens in France. Sex happens all over motherfucking France. So the other 3 weeks that we were there, we went all over, tiny towns all over France. I guess if you're looking at a map, and I'm trying to do it from your perspective, like Paris, and then there's like Normandy, and we went from Paris to Normandy, and then like all the way down to like mid-German France, back to Paris, a little up again, and back down again. And in every single town I went to in France, me being obsessed with two things, cathedrals and sex shops, I visited the cathedrals and the sex shop in every single town I went to in France. Also, the French are not rude. If you try to speak French in France, they're incredibly appreciative of this fact. I don't care how bad your pronunciation is. You say, plein du pain, please. They're like, oh sure, we'll bring you more bread. That's so cute, you're American. And you're like, merci, je suis Americain, lentement. Like, you speak really slowly, and they don't care. They're very happy about it. So, the two most important phrases in France, more bread, please. Plein du pain? And whatever. See, I told you I wasn't very good at French. They didn't care. And où est le sex shop? Now, must say, when I was in France, I did not look 16. I was very large. I had jet black hair. I wore bright red lipstick. And I wore lingerie as clothes. Layers and layers of lingerie, plus like tights. Yeah, no, it was 1996, but Europe is stuck 10 years behind us perpetually. So in 1996, in France, as the rest of Europe, it was 1986. David Hasselhoff was big, like fishnet gloves, they were really fucking cool. So lingerie and red lipstick, perfectly fine. People thought I was French. They would sexually harass me like I was French. They would talk to me as if I knew what the fuck meant. But Où est le sex shop always elicited a very speedy like response of, no, please draw that out for me. I have no idea what you're talking about. But in every single town I went to in France, I found a sex shop because when we landed in Paris, there was porn at the airport. Indeed, I was this is one of the reasons that I wanted to visit the sex shop in every single city, because there was motherfucking porn at the airport, and the porn wasn't like Hustler or Playboy, and in the 90s, like Hustler now, it's a little shocking. They show anal, they show cum shots, sometimes there's peeing. In the 90s, Hustler was not that shocking. But the porn in the airport in France, incredibly shocking. And so I was like, okay, let's explore this culture that gives a shit about their history, that gives a shit about their people, that gives a shit about people being people and having human needs and whatever the fuck. So, in Paris, the sex shops are like this. $400 thigh-high patent leather boots. Thigh-high that fit me, by the way. Like, I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm kind of a gigantic lady. And thigh high for me is like crotch high for everybody else. It happens. But they still let me try on these boots. Like, oh, 16-year-old, of course, she's probably got enough money. So incredibly, incredibly expensive apparel. The porn in Paris, a little high class, a little artsy, very attractive ladies. Possibly you get some of the like very pale and brown hair, dark, thick eyebrows, like Eastern European porn, because they're naughty. In France, the Eastern Europeans are really naughty. But you go outside of Paris, you go a little bit north and a little bit, shit, I'm all turned around, that's like west to you guys. So you get to like the Normandy area, and the porn becomes incredibly interesting. In the sex shops, not like the Lovers Luxuries across the street, in the sex shops, lingerie is incredibly low rent. You can buy this shit at Target, but they sell it at the sex shops. And the magazines are all written in at least 4 different languages. You've got French, German, Italian, Spanish, sometimes a Slavic language like Czech or Russian, you're not quite sure. But the porn that I encountered first that I was incredibly interested, I do believe this was in Saint-Malo. Saint-Malo is the walled city. It's in Normandy. Mont-Saint-Michel is the island cathedral. It's an isthmus for half the day, and it's an island for the rest of the day. Mont-Saint-Michel is. But Saint-Malo is the city that is adjacent to it in northwestern France. They were obsessed with teen porn. You can read in 4 different languages. All of the portrayers of this porn are at least 21, but that doesn't seem to stop the people from buying this magazine and seeing incredibly emaciated women, like no thighs, visible ribs, tits like mine, except it's cold in here, so my nipples are hard.
Yeah, we noticed.
You're welcome. They had headbands, not like Freddie Mercury sweatbands. No, like giant headbands across their forehead that were supposed to dictate the age they were. And they were written in motherfucking English. 16, 17, 15. Apparently, suspension of disbelief is not just for the movies in France in the 1990s. I was amazed, and I saw this at sex shop after sex shop after sex shop in tiny city after tiny city after tiny city that I stopped in. This 15, 16, 17-year-old porn. Apparently, once you're 18, it's not exciting anymore. But they wear these gigantic headbands in order to do whatever the hell they're doing, like with the guys. Even though you can read in 4 languages the disclaimer on the first page, every one of these actresses was at least 21. So I was incredibly amused at that. After getting outside of Paris, outside of the superficial, like, it takes a lot of money to be sexy in Paris. I don't care if you're in the red light district or wherever. It takes a lot of money to be sexy. In the small towns, all it takes is a headband.
Yeah, baby.
It's true.
It's true here.
I could get you one of those. Yeah, they were like pink and peach and various colors. Once we got down to like more of the mid-western coast of France, there's like a tiny little island there called La Belle Ile. And it's adorable. You can rent a bicycle and drive around or ride around that island. There's some cool cemeteries. No cathedral on that island, so I could not visit this cathedral and then visit the sex shop or vice versa. But they did have a sex shop on that island. On the Belle Ile, it was much less about underage porn as it was about various different kinds of porn, body types kinds of porn. In the sex shop, they had, how do I put this nicely, large girl porn? BBWs? That didn't exist in the mid-90s, at least not in France. I'm sure they didn't have any acronyms in France until 5 years from now, because that's just become a thing. Yes. I know, but you know, they just got over David Hasselhoff. They're not going to be into BBWs for like 5 years.
No one gets over David Hasselhoff.
And lives to tell the tale.
I'm still recovering.
So they had BBW porn. They also had this weird, scary, hairy, crack addict, mother of the year type porn. It was like these MILFs that, yes. Except, are there brunettes in Iowa? I'm not quite sure. I don't really, when I stop for gas, I just keep my eyes down and don't really look. But yeah, there were all of these, it was like middle-aged porn, and all of the big ladies were doing like the titty fucking, and like there was the opposite, like not in the butt, but like up the crack fucking. And I was like, oh, this is interesting, because there's 2 holes available to you, but you would just rather like rub it on the stuff. Sure, all right. Right, I know, I'm in a foreign country, I'm 16, I'm not gonna judge. And then the weird crack addict, hairy MILF porn was more about like, you're a weird crack addict, hairy MILF. And like, look at this degenerate mother having sex with things in a magazine. Things. Yeah, they weren't always penises. They weren't always pants. They were... No, there was also, oh God, that was the other thing. In Limoges, I saw in this one porn shop a lot of vegetable porn. Yeah.
Sexy artichokes.
Wow. I didn't see any sexy artichokes. It was mostly like zucchinis and carrots. There was maybe a squash or 2. But I thought it was, what's that? Ooh. I don't know, were any animals harmed? That would be the question. It was very strange, because Limoges, of course, is like the home of artisan porcelain, so you would think that they would have all sorts of means at their disposal to make silica and glass and other wonderful things, but no, they were obsessed with organic types of porn things. So quickly, I came to realize that, you know, these strange places, the Belle Ile, a vacation spot for young 20-somethings, is obsessed with older woman porn. Saint-Malo, you know, where all these people are established. Saint-Malo, oops, sorry, I'm like showing it in a map on my world. Saint-Malo and La Rochelle, where they also don't have a minimum age for piercing, and I could get my tongue pierced at 16. They were obsessed with young porn because they were older cities and very old, and it made me realize at a very young age that, you know, not only is this a very different culture from America, from the one I was raised in, where they respect art and they respect history, it also made me realize the nature of fetish, in that fetish is something that we don't know a lot about. It's taboo, it's almost revered. So in a city that's very old, the young people are what's the deal. And in a city that has a lot of industry, the vegetables are what's the deal. And in Paris, where, you know, there is a lot of money in Paris, but there's also a lot of human garbage. The human garbage was not, you know, the amateurs and, you know, the young people were not the deal in Paris. It was more the, you know, who could pay for it, who could have the money to make yourself a dancer or to buy the special outfit. And it was a really eye-opening experience for someone who was young and intellectual and looking to explore that at that time. But yeah, French porn in the 90s. Incredibly, incredibly strange. God, what else did I see? I bought a lot of porn that I still have there. I'm trying to think. Rouen. I don't know if I'm saying that right because my French is terrible. They have like 2 or 3 beautiful cathedrals there, and they are a city of not many people. Cathedrals, they take generations to build. They take like 100 years to build. in Rouen, the deal with the porn was like incredibly amateur. They were a city that was trying to get some kind of industry into there because it had been such a cottage industry to build these things. So they were trying to attract like big heavy industry, and they were just becoming like industrialized and incredibly economically, I do this, powerful. Sorry, I've had 3 glasses of wine, it's whatever. But they were obsessed with the amateur porn, and I could not get any like professional looking porn in that city. There were other cities that were incredibly family oriented. There was the city I stayed in with the family for a week, the family that had the 18-year-old that was letting her go on vacation with a 26-year-old, which blew my fucking mind because my parents would never do that. That little tiny city that had like a vacation cottage for all the Louis XVIs and Marie Antoinettes of the day, they were incredibly obsessed with ass porn. Right? But it was a little tiny cottage town, and it billed itself as whatever. And I came to realize this is what turns us on: the different, the taboo, and that was the nature of what is salacious and what is wonderful to us. A little bit of my background: I was really over-sexualized at a very young age. My mom talked about sex like when I was at I like a boy, so I'm gonna smash him on the head with my lunchbox. She was like, now don't let that boy put his fingers in your pussy, because if he has AIDS, he's gonna give you some AIDS. And I'm like, I'm 4, and this is really gross. What are you talking about, Mom? And she was like, you know how lesbians do it? They do it with their tongues. And I was like, that just seems uncomfortable and possibly painful to those of us with TMJ. I'm not quite sure what you're talking about. But no, I was aware of these things at a painfully young age, and therefore I thought all sex was kind of strange and kind of gross. And coming of age on a vacation in France, a culture that was very used to porn and very used to incredibly strange kinds of porn, really made me realize that, hey, this is how it works. Everyone has a different taboo. Everyone's feet are covered most of the time, and therefore Quentin Tarantino grew up like not seeing ladies' toes, and as soon as he saw Uma Thurman like move that toe, he was like, yeah, I got it. And you know, everyone's boobies are covered all the time, and most people see boobies and they're like, I want some of that. But in France, there is fucking public art everywhere. Nothing is covered all the time. So they have incredibly specific fetishes for incredibly specific socioeconomic situations. And it was a crazy ass weird thing to think about. And I guess really this story was kind of pointless, as was my vomit story. So, you know, it's whatever. I just got up here and did whatever the fuck. But I hope I made you think about something, and I hope you go and visit France someday, because not only is there fabulous art there, there's fabulous architecture, and in every single goddamn town, I don't care how tiny it is, there's a cathedral, and there's a sex shop. Thank you, guys.
Well, that's about it for performers, but before we go, I have to look at the back and I see Jerry Ficklin. And the reason I say this is because I don't know if Jerry saw what I saw today, but it involves our favoriteest person in the whole wide world. Someone who, no, I wept when he dropped out of the Republican race.
Rick Santorum!
Yes!
You know I love your Santorum.
Oh, yes.
He's a Republican.
Wait a second, Dave. Now, that guy can call himself whatever he wants, but I don't think it's, I don't feel comfortable hearing that word. He can call himself, I just think it's ridiculous that they publish that word in the newspaper where kids can read.
I know, it's incredible how,
He can call himself whatever he wants. That's not what I'm saying.
and especially in private, and the thing of it is that they do that in like large, like venues now. There was a headline, and I almost collapsed laughing when I read it. The headline was, Santorum says smart people will not support us.
In other news, water is wet.
Yeah. Bears shit in the wood, popes, tall hats. It was just one of those incredible moments. We seem to be headed toward some particular moment coming up in November. I have my own particular directions to head this way or that way. You can do whatever you want. I am grateful for the fact that Rick Santorum will not be president. I am depressed by the fact that he did not get more of an opportunity to just keep talking. It was brilliant. Every time, yeah. As a former Wisconsinite, I'm sorry.
It's Janesville. It's not your fault.
Good point.
Have you seen Santorum's butt plug?
Oh, no.
Keep my Facebook, motherfucker.
I'll check that out. Yeah, Damon introduced me to a great website with some various other ones, but yeah, I had to pass along the Rick Santorum story because I figured that everybody would get a good chuckle out of that. And with that, that is all we have for this evening. I'm not saying that everybody has to leave. We can all hang out. We can have a few drinks. We are eventually going to work our way over to Beercade, which if you've not been, I highly recommend. There is the glass jar over there. If you happen to have a couple of bucks to spare, we're going to take the money from that and kick it over to the Multiple Sclerosis Society. Say that 3 times fast. And thank you all so very, very much for coming out on the Virgo birthday party. Thanks.